of the biggest in the world. And it's very pure. I mean, it's pure, perfect stuff. They don't have to, spend a fortune on gases and energy in order to melt the rock and everything. They have pure, unadulterated, good oil. And you say, why is somebody that has that kind of oil, other than being politically correct, but when you have unlimited amounts of oil and gas, why are you putting up, why do you need civil nuclear? I just don't see it.
But I mean, are you going to call for it all?
And I think nuclear is fine. I think nuclear is fine for civil if you have a country with no oil. But if you're sitting on the largest piles of oil in the world, why are you talking about putting up nuclear civil? I call it nuclear civil.
And so Bibi Netanyahu is not convinced that a deal would be good. Is that fair to say?
I think I can say that Bibi, he's an angry man.
Mm-hmm.
And he should be because of October 7th. And he's been hurt badly by that. But in another way, he's been sort of helped because I think he's fought hard and bravely.
And you think the Israel-Hamas, the situation in Gaza is going to come to an end soon?
Gaza's a nasty place. It's been that way for years. I think it should become a free zone. Freedom. I call it a freedom zone. It should become a freedom zone. It doesn't work. Every 10 years they go back. They have Hamas. Everybody's being killed all over the place. I mean, you ever see? You talk about crime stats. It's a nasty place.
Are these people, these countries that you were just visiting, are they going to have to be a part of the solution?
Well, they would be. They would be. I spoke to all three of them. They would absolutely be. I mean, they're really rich and really, really, really even more than rich. They're good people, and they would help. And so money's not even the problem.
You got to get countries to say yes.
Well, look, these are people that want to be in the Middle East. They really want to be in the Middle East. They love the Middle East. I see that. There's a spirit for the Middle East. They didn't have to go to Sweden, Germany, these different countries. They could have been home in the Middle East if somebody had the brains to build beautiful communities. 1.9 million is a lot of people, but it's not a lot of people. Relatively.
You had a couple of foreign policy successes right before this trip. You picked up the phone and called 2 nuclear powers, India and Pakistan, and you got them to step back from the brink. That was a success as you got on the plane heading over here.
A bigger success than I'll ever be given credit for. That those are major nuclear powers. Those are not like a little bit. And they were angry. And the next phase was probably, did you see where it was getting? It was tit for tat. It was getting deeper and more. I mean, more missiles. Everyone was stronger. So to a point where the next one's going to be, you know what? The N-word. You know what the N-word is, right?
Nuclear.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification.
Yeah. Want to clean that up? No, it's the N-word. That's a very nasty word, right? In a lot of ways. The N-word used in a nuclear sense, that's the worst thing that can happen. And I think they were very close. The hatred was great. And I said, we're going to talk about trade. We're going to do a lot of trade. Don't forget, Iran wants to make a deal with us badly for a lot of reasons. But when you look at India, they are calling, Iran wants to trade with us, okay, if you can believe that. And I'm okay with it. I'm using trade to settle scores and to make peace. But I've told Iran, we make a deal, you're going to be very happy. But more than anything, I've told Iran very simply, because I heard somebody making my case last night on television. I didn't like it. Because they were saying, there's plenty of time. Not plenty of time. There's not plenty of time.
You feel urgency.
Well, they're not going to have a nuclear weapon, and eventually they'll have a nuclear weapon, and then the discussion becomes a much different one. But in the case of India wants, they're one of the highest taxed or tariff nations in the world. They make it almost impossible to do business. Do you know that they're willing to cut 100% of the tariffs for the United States?
Is that deal coming soon?
Yeah, that'll come soon. I'm in no rush. Look, everybody wants to make a deal with us.
So South Korea.
South Korea wants to make a deal with us. Everybody. But I'm not going to make deals with everybody. I'm just going to set the limit. I'll make some deals. But And then I'm just, because you can't be with that many people.
Right.
We've got
Can't be around
150 countries that want to make deals. Yeah, you have a lot of
The
countries.
market was really happy with the China situation.
Oh.
To sit down.
Right.
And you
The
know
Treasury
what?
Secretary.
If I didn't do that deal with China, I think China would have broken apart.
Not us, them.
We weren't going to break. We're going to break. They would have broken apart. You know, our country has a lot of spirit. And you know why? Because of November 5th. Because our country has spirit again.
The other foreign policy shift was this embrace of Syria. And he met with the Syrian president, who has a shady past of being tied to Al Qaeda and the Al-Nusra Front in Syria. But you see promise there.
Well, before I talk about that, just one word.
Yeah.
Also Pakistan. Great conversations with Pakistan. You know, we can't forget them. And because it does take two to tango. And with India, I felt very certain. And with Pakistan, I also talked about trade. Oh, they would love to trade. They would love to trade. You know, they're brilliant people. They make incredible products. And we don't do much trading with them. And yet I have a good relationship with a lot of people that you wouldn't believe. But I stopped that war. That was going to be a nuclear war, I think. We're close. Very close. You were right there.
Yeah.
And now everyone's happy. In fact, I told my people, call them up. Let's start trading immediately because I'm a man of my word. Now when you get to Syria, so I did something with Syria because the future king, and you have a wonderful king right now. He's an older man. He's also a friend of mine. He's 100% sharp. He's great. And he's got a great son, the Crown Prince. And he has actually many titles. He's Prime Minister, he's Crown Prince. And he's doing a great job running it. But he called me and he spoke to me. And he said, could you do me a favor? Could you, and do the world a favor, could you take the sanctions off Syria? Because the only way they're going to have a chance, the sanctions are crippling, really biting. Well, that's what I did with Iran, and they came to a point where they were bust. Could you take the sanctions off? I hadn't thought about it much, and he said it in a way that was, you know, he's got a great heart. He said they can't make it with those sanctions. I said, let's give him a chance. I met the leader. I met the new leader, and handsome guy, by the way, young, handsome. And I said, you know, you have quite a past. You got a tough past, but when you think about it, are you going to put a choir boy in that position? I don't think so. You know, it's going to be a little bit tough. It's a tough
So
fight.
you're willing to give him a shot.
You know the way they say it's a nasty neighborhood. It's a rough neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really, I thought it was terrific. He was so thankful about the sanctions because he knew he's not going to be able to bust through.
So maybe it'll be a turn there. We'll see.
I think he has a real chance. He's a strong guy. He's done some pretty tough things.
A lot of the coverage here was about your speech in Saudi Arabia and some of those things that you said about trusting these countries to make their own decisions. And we're not trying to make it a mirror image of ourselves. You know, big foreign policy.
We have our own problems.
Yeah. But a lot of the coverage back home was about this donation of the Qatar Boeing jet. And I've heard you talk about it.
You know, until you bring this up now, I haven't heard about it for 3 days.
I know, but I mean, I'm just
I mean, we can talk about it again. You're right.
Not briefly.
You're
No,
right.
I heard all the answers.
Well, no, but your audience has to hear the answers.
They're giving it to the
I
Defense
mean, to be
Department.
very simple.
Yeah.
They're giving it to the United States Air Force / Defense Department of the United States. They're not giving it to me. I made a good deal. We need a plane for a couple of years before we get the other ones because Boeing is very late. Boeing is
Did
sadly.
you talk to the CEO?
I did. I said, let's get, you know, in the meantime, I got him 160 planes to build. I said, how about the two that you're supposed to build for our country? Now, they are different. They're extremely complex, and I'm not going to go into it, but they're not like a normal plane. You know, it's not like building a 747 normal.
We could put people on the moon
But
before
let me tell you,
the Boeing Air Force Ones.
people knew I was angry at Boeing. A lot of people know. These people know. They're very smart down here. And they suggested if we can do anything at all to help. Because we have 40-year-old planes right now. You know, our Air Force One, it was actually two planes. It's 747s.
I don't think people know they're 40 years. It's 4 decades old, the current Air
They're
Force
40 years old. They're more than that. I think they're 42 now. I've been saying 40 for 2 years. they're 42. We shouldn't have a 42-year-old plane. And you know what? There's nothing unsafe about it. In many cases, they're just as safe or more safe. They're heavier. You know, they throw out a lot more for the environmentalists out there to turn them. They throw out a little more than a modern engine would throw out. But they're good, but they're 42 years old. And when we landed, I saw the other day when we landed, I was parked right next. We parked right next to the 747 of Qatar, and we parked next. There was another 747, two or three of them, which the Arab world has. And when you look at a new 747 and you look at a plane that's 42 years old, not even the same plane, the other ones are bigger and sleeker and sharper, and it doesn't look right. We have a problem with Boeing. Now, again, it's a very complex plane. It's a much different plane than a normal plane would be. Okay. And they're doing a great job. They're coming back, and they're coming back strong. But I'm angry about them for the two planes. They should be able to knock them off in no time, and they're not able to do that. And he said, great gentleman, to me, he said, I would like to help if you want. I said, how can you help? Well, we happen to have a plane. And I said, well, what do you want? He said, you have been, and he doesn't mean me, although I have been good. He means our country has defended them, has done great things for them. They might not be there. Look, right next to Iran, and he is right next to. He's not like an hour away. Like I flew an hour to one, I flew an hour to here, but that one you don't have to fly. All you have to do is walk right across the border if you want to. I mean, it's literally touching, right? Right next to. And he said, your country has been very good to us. I would love to do something to help with this situation you have with Air Force One. I said, that's nice. What do you suggest? And he suggested this. And I said, you know what? That's very nice. That's very nice. I appreciate it. What would be the price? He said, there is no price. I said, that's nice. Now, this plane's not for me. This goes to the United States Air Force for whoever is president. And at some point, it'll be like Ronald Reagan. It'll be decommissioned. It's 11 years old.
So it stays until it's decommissioned.
Yeah, it'll be decommissioned because they won't want it. Plus, they'll have the other two planes by that time, and there'll be brand new planes, etc. But I just want to say, it was a radical left story that a lot of people, including you,
I asked the Prime Minister about it
specifically.
And he said, he didn't understand the
Cash
reaction
out
back home.
donations.
And, he made that clear.
I think it was insulting, actually.
Email
He
me
made-
for personal video.
Made a gift to help somebody that has helped them. It was so nice as a gesture. And the people here, to show you how it's crazy, they'd like me to pay $1 billion. I'd rather pay $1 billion and get 10 fighter jets instead of giving $1 billion when it's not necessary.
Mr. President, if you'll stand by.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.
You.
office, leave your room keys at the door. Happy Thursday, everyone. So on a recent podcast, former First Lady Michelle Obama complained about the time Ellen DeGeneres challenged her to a push-up contest. Michelle found it oddly uncomfortable since Ellen insisted on laying underneath her. Because she's a lesbian. Speaking of, Michelle also admitted on the podcast that she fights with her husband over the thermostat. She wants it at 70 degrees, while he wants it up his butt. According to a new book, Joe Biden brought in famed director Steven Spielberg to help with his campaign. They called the operation Saving Diane Biden. According to the same book, Kamala Harris's campaign team held a fake cocktail party without alcohol so she could work on her social skills without a drink in her hand. But she showed them and brought her trusty beer helmet. Good for her. Don't let him change you, Kamala. While arguing about a deported illegal criminal, Eric Swalwell warned Kristi Noem that he has a detector, which he obviously hadn't purchased until after he banged that Chinese spy. Speaking of, according to a new report, Chinese spies have infiltrated Stanford University. This became very apparent when all the graduation gowns showed up neatly folded and pressed. Oscar-winning actress Halle Berry says she doesn't know if a woman should ever play James Bond. After all, women already have a license to kill. It's called a driver's license. Yeah.
I don't want you to be alone.
Thank you. The first great white shark of the season was spotted on Montauk in New York. Officials warned swimmers to beware of the shark and warned sharks to beware of Joy Behar. And finally, did you see President Trump's visit to the Middle East? I know, holy cow. I haven't seen that many men in dresses since the WNBA draft. All right. That was a good little run there. All right. So did you hear egg prices have dropped in Joe Biden's testicles? But you want to see how CNN reports it? Here's their headline. Quote, Trump's egg price fiction has suddenly become reality. Yeah, Trump's fiction, now reality.
Yeah,
Meaning when Trump turns out to be right,
cheaper, so
it's only because reality caught up to his lies. In CNN's, that headline translates as, he may be right, but he's still evil. Next, they'll say egg prices have dropped, but that's bad for trans chickens. You know they're trans because they tuck their McNuggets. So remember the I word, inflation? Yeah, neither does the media, because it no longer works for them. And what about the stock market? The media had investors stepping out on the ledge, and not just to drop a water balloon on the homeless guy below. Tariffs were supposed to cause such an economic collapse that it convinced me to stop paying my riders. And what of the assertion that Trump would be a laughingstock on the global stage? Have you seen what's going on in the Middle East? They're giving him jets as a housewarming gift. Oh, Biden wasn't even worth a barf bag and an extra bag of sun chips. You know, it's weird how we're always right and the media is always wrong. If this were a marriage, they'd be the husband. But, yeah. But Americans are sick of it. A recent poll found that 49% of voters see media bias is getting worse, compared to just 11% who see it getting better. Meanwhile, 44% of voters agree with this statement. No matter how much you hate the media, it's not enough. You know, I had that same feeling, but it's for sharing an elevator with Britt Hume after he's had his sardine smoothie. Don't knock it, Britt. It's good for the prostate. God, it's really good for the prostate. Put it down, the throat comes out, great. But But that's not just losing trust. That's burning down an entire industry and peeing on the ashes. This hatred is bipartisan. Not just Trump bros and monster trucks playing Kid Rock at max volume. We're talking independents, centrists, even bored libs who keep getting let down because they're being led down the path of defeat. So it raises a new question. If we're tired of the media's lies, why are they tired of it too? I mean, I can understand a liar continuing to lie if it pays off. That's how I talk my way past the height restrictions on most roller coasters. But what if the filter you use keeps predicting the wrong outcome? When you get tired of that, when you go back to the drawing board, when you see that it doesn't work anymore, it's like when I realized I can't keep firing my secretaries when they won't date me. Again, it's one thing to make millions selling swampland in Florida, but it's another thing to try to sell swampland and it's you who ends up in the moss and the mud. The grift isn't just not working out on us, it's not working for them either. And surely by now the media and Dems have heard enough of the criticism. They're out of ideas, they're too woke, too disconnected from voters. But it's clear they still ignore it because they haven't changed. But what they can't ignore is that the filter they're using to perceive reality predicts nothing except defeat and misery. Think of the mindset that led them to embrace the Maryland dad, that led them to think men could play in women's sports, that led them to think this corpse was conscious, or this clown could win. Their mindset led them to think parents would accept tampons in boys' bathrooms and drag queens in school libraries. I could go on, but then I would be late for my pole dancing class. Thank you. Reducing stress. I mean, imagine if you were a gambler and you had this system that picked horses, but every single time you lost. Wouldn't you dump your betting strategy? Or at the very least pick up a healthier habit like meth? When your frame of reference leads to defeat at every turn, shouldn't you lose that frame of reference? You think they would, but so far they won't. When it comes to self-reflection, the media is less curious than Elton John around a stack of Playboys. What's going on tonight, audiences, root for him to get off the stage, writer comedian Joe DeVito. She's got talking points and hollow points. Fox News contributor editor for Town Hall. Yeah. She may be cheerful, but she'll give you an earful. Outnumbered co-host Emmy Galvano. And the Statue of Liberty looks up to him. New York Times bestselling author, comedian, and former NWA world champion, Tara. Joe, now that egg prices are dropping, will you finally afford breakfast or lunch?
Yes, well, I'm so glad I had my eggs frozen a couple years ago. Seemed like the right call. I'm tempted to get Jake Tapper's book just so I can read, acting like it's a revelation for them to admit to the things we've been saying for 4 years.
Yes.
It didn't take investigative journalism to know that Joe Biden was a zucchini this whole time.
Yeah.
And it's just, they didn't just lie. They insulted us. They said, do you remember deep fakes?
Yes.
They said, oh, this wasn't what you were actually seeing. You weren't actually seeing a president who needed to be airlifted onto the plane.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it's crazy that they have squandered that. The news media's job is to tell the truth.
Yeah.
And when they stop doing that, they've got nothing left. You know, and they talked about some of the videos we mentioned. Did Steven Spielberg help with his 30-second promo that he did for his campaign that had 45 edits in it?
Yeah.
Where he was like, make my day, I'll do the day. Like, he was so clearly incompetent, and I just think, I don't know what they're going to do now.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're going to do, because how do you come back from saying, I know we're supposed to tell the truth, but we lied this time, Joe Scarborough said, I wouldn't lie to you when he cursed at you, and you have to look at him and say, is he an idiot? Is he a liar? I say, why choose?
Yeah.
Why put limits on the man? And he can be both.
Yes, he can be both. You know, Katie, the thing that gets me is like, we can give all this constructive criticism to the media. They're not going to take it. So why don't they just look at the outcomes from their filter? If you wake up every morning expecting like a Trump failure and it's not there, there's something wrong with your filter. Maybe you should change the filter.
But
First, Greg, I'm glad to see that you have a new hobby. He's very concerned that you don't have enough to do. So I'm glad pole dancing is now taking your time. That's a great question. And it's because they are insulated still. They're not willing to actually get out and learn and take some responsibility. And they're so narcissistic that they're not willing to, say that they were wrong, because now there's money to be made. So the same people who were yelling at Laura Trump in the 2020 election that Joe Biden just had a stutter, there wasn't an incompetence issue there. And then now you fast forward 5 years, now there's money to be made on a shameless book. And it's because they all do this for each other. They scratch each other's back, and they are in this isolationist bubble where they really can't come to the terms of just admitting they were wrong. And so this has a diminishing returns, right? At some point, the circle becomes smaller because some people will leave, and they'll have to find something else to do, but they're just not willing to admit it. And they're around all the same people with no different ideology all the time. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, you know what, Emily? You're a very happy person. You're very bubbly. You light up a room like an arsonist. So I'm stuck on this, the way they view things and how it's always wrong. That has to correlate with the fact that all of these Democrats look so miserable. Imagine getting up and your arch nemesis is always winning. And you have to wake up like a competing cheerleader. It's like always besting you. And you're like, I hate this person. And every day that person is. Isn't it time for you to say, okay, I got to let this go?
Well, the graceful person would. The after-school special main character in me would say it only ends with death. Yeah, look, Katie's absolutely right. It's the insular nature, and I think what you're describing, it's so baked in. It's literally impossible for them to extricate themselves from it. It's like learning that someone's, behavior, their depression, it was a chemical imbalance.
Yeah.
Like there was nothing they could do to actually get over it, to click out of the emperor's new clothes. And the fact that in this machine of media, that this person goes to the producer and says, I'm going to phrase the headline this way. And then they say, oh, yeah, sure, it's signed off on by 1 million people. There is zero common sense. There's zero auditing happening. That's from an outside source. 49%, as you said, of people thinking that the media is dying, right? That they hate it. It reminds me of the Wicked Witch dying slowly, that we are watching it. We're watching it in real time. But what happens next? Right? We're seeing the rise of the independent journalists, people who actually ask questions and podcasts and the like, but there is still this industry. And so I don't know where it all goes, but I think it's up to the advertising dollars and it's up to the network heads to shut that down.
Sorry. I think this Biden stuff is big, and it's going to get bigger. And the media, I think, is looking at it and going like, where are we going to end up? They're terrified.
No, the media is like a husband who's been caught cheating and he has a girlfriend and a wife on the side.
And a wife?
On the side, yeah. And he got caught.
He's got a girlfriend and a wife.
Don't correct me, Gutfeld. He's got a girlfriend and a wife on the side.
Okay.
I'm going somewhere with this. Okay. They both found out.
Right.
Okay. But in his mind, one of them will come back. So he doesn't have to change anything. So with the media, the media isn't going to change because they still have somebody coming back to them.
Yes.
They're still in their bubble. When they tweet, they still get love from their little world. They're trying to get in front. What are they trying to do? And you pointed this out before anybody did, so I'll give you credit for this. They tried to point out physical things.
Yeah.
Well, he was going to have to be in a wheelchair. And Eric's like, oh no. Ever heard of Governor Abbott?
Yeah.
He does a stand-up job in Texas.
Yeah.
So
it's true. Only the ableist would see that as an insult.
he does. Always on his toes. The guy's good. But the point is that they still are the criminal in the corner trying to find a way to wiggle out. They're trapped in the corner, but the Americans, because if this was a moment of awakening, if they were like, hey, this cover up and we're going to clean it up, the first thing they would do was fire every person on TV who pushed that to the American people.
Right.
That would be the first thing to do. And if Jake Tapper had any credibility, they would resign because they were a willing participant lying to the American people, trying to influence elections. They're still doing it. Even when Trump has a win, and I was reading the horrible CNN article, it was like, well, at the time when he said eggs were coming down, they weren't down yet, so he lied, and then his lie turned into truth 48 hours later.
Yeah.
So he's still a liar. They're still doing that. They're still the one that goes back to the cheating thing. You catch your wife cheating, and she's like, how dare you break into my phone?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of a person goes to my phone? You're sleeping with my brother. It's not about that. It's about trust. And you were in my phone. What gives you the right to be in my phone?
Yes.
You be doing too much.
I told you that story in confidence, Cyrus. All right.
Hey, it's Will Kane. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Kane podcast for full episodes right now.
Nice to see New Yorkers using their hands for something besides stabbing people. Happy Wednesday, everyone. So the police were called to a Chicago airport after a Southwest Airlines passenger got naked and pooped on her seat.
Right.
In her defense, she did board in group number 2. Failed VP candidate Tim Walz says Kamala Harris picked him because he can talk to white guys. True, here's one of the white guys. According to the Daily Caller, the 4 Democrats who went to an El Salvador prison to visit alleged gang member Kilmar Abrega Garcia stayed in a luxury hotel. In their defense, they got a discount using the promo code MS13. In their first 100 days, Trump faced 92% negative coverage, while Biden received nearly 60% positive press coverage. The press's excuse? They were told not to speak ill of the dead. Milwaukee Judge Hannah Dugan, who was accused of shielding an illegal immigrant from ICE agents, has been temporarily relieved of her official duties. However, she will now go back to her previous job of terrorizing the Goonies. Close. Scientists have found a giant hidden gas cloud only 300 light years away from Earth. Hey, don't look at me, said one man. 80 years ago today, Adolf Hitler killed himself. At least that's what my Uncle Steve keeps telling me. I stay at his place in Argentina. Robert De Niro's 29-year-old child, Aaron, has come out as transgender. When the press asked her for comment, she said, "You talking to they, them?" And finally, George Clooney's wife, Amal, could be denied entry to America for accusing Benjamin Netanyahu of war crimes, prompting Bill Clinton to urge Hillary to accuse Benjamin Netanyahu of war crimes. All right. So as we mark the Trump administration's first 100 days, let's not forget the Dems. Yes, it's time for
The Dems' first 100 days.
Not like this! Not like this! I don't know what that means, but okay. So while Trump's been battling to secure the border, cut government waste, and restore law and order, the Dems have been doing what exactly? Let's take a fond look back at their great achievements so far. Of course, we begin with a joint session of Congress. And a reminder, this was not an audition to play the next Chewbacca.
Mr. Green, take your seat. Take your seat, sir. Take your seat. Remove this gentleman from the chamber.
Okay, homeless Moses. Then we got the kind of singing that would have made Van Gogh cut off his other ear. Yes, it does. I never thought I'd say this, but I miss Yoko Ono. Then we got a filibuster, which is a fancy word of saying, I won't shut up.
When is it going to be enough? I will not stand for another American to lose their health care for a billionaire. I don't want a Disneyfication of our history. I don't want to whitewash history. I don't want to homogenize history. Today into tomorrow, I'm going to stand as long as I can. We're going to stand up. We're going to stand up.
You know, they'd have arrested him for loitering if they didn't think he'd like it. I wonder if such grandstanding is a hit with the ladies. I kid, that guy's about as straight as Steve Buscemi's teeth. Up next, JB, which stands for Junior Blimp.
Never before in my life have I called for mass protests, for mobilization, for disruption. But I am now. These Republicans cannot know a moment of peace.
The only mass disruption we have to worry about from him is when he busts through a wall like the Kool-Aid Man. He wants Republicans to never know peace? Yeah, just like the plumber he keeps on retainer. Then there's Walt, still lingering like a fart in a car seat.
On my phone, I don't know, some of you know this on the iPhone, they've got that little stock app. I added Tesla to it to give me a little boost during the day. 225 and dropping.
That was their token masculine male? I've seen balls of yarn with more testosterone. But what did his shock troops do? Vandalize Teslas, burn down dealerships? You think Walt will visit them in jail? Only if it's conjugal. Or conjugal. Conjugal.
No, conjugal.
That's if you're Jewish. Conjugal if you're Jewish, conjugal if you're not. Then there was spring break. Senator Van Hollen took off for El Salvador on our time and our dime to rub elbows with a wife-beating MS-13 gang member, or as the Dems call him, a Maryland dad. Which is like saying Ted Bundy was a dating expert from Vermont. Not to be outdone, Bernie and AOC took to a private jet around the country to fight oligarchy. What's next? A polo match in support of struggling glue factories? All of this culminated yesterday with this call for impeachment.
Donald Trump has already done real damage to our democracy, but defying the unanimous 9-0 Supreme Court ruling, that has to be the final straw. It's time we impeach Donald J. Trump.
Is that even real? I mean the hair. The hair, not the impeachment. I haven't seen hair that thick since Rashida Tlaib wore a tank top. But, man, are the Dems getting impatient. Trump's first impeachment came 173 days into his first term. Here it's 99 days. Makes you think, what are they going to do for his third term? Of course, there's as much a chance that Trump will be impeached as there is a Joy Behar ever seeing her feet. Making it the perfect metaphor for the Dems' first 100 days. Fake, pointless, all for show. Of course, that's what the Dems did. But what about what they didn't do? Well, they didn't support the Lincoln-Riley Act, or making government more efficient, or protecting women's sports. No wonder their popularity ratings are as high as Stevie Wonder's bowling score. But the Dems still have the media. The Trump White House has faced 92% negative coverage from ABC, NBC, CBS. However, in their defense, all three believe they can get that up to 100% in no time. But the Dems' theatrics are proof of the party's inherent failures. Their ideology is based on internal conflict. And a competition between the aggrieved never generates a leader, only miserable followers at each other's throats. So it's been a glorious first 100 days for the Dems. Here's to another 100 if they make it that far. She uses those glasses to expose stupid jackasses. Host of Kennedy Saves the World podcast, Kennedy. He's proof that Jews don't run show business. She once talked a guy into jumping off a cliff. Co-host and outnumbered Annalie Campagno. And for him, every van is a minivan. New York Times bestseller. Kennedy, when you go through that entire mosaic of the last 100 days, it's kind of amazing, like what the Dems have done in their own frustration and desperation. What say you?
Yeah, a 25-hour, it wasn't even a filibuster.
Yeah.
It was just a guy who wouldn't shut up for a day and an hour, who then was so exhausted he had to go have a sit-in
Yes.
outside of his own office. So, and then J.B. Pritzker, who was calling for essentially a stampede, which is very dangerous if he's running to anything.
True.
I'd rather give the elephants in the zoo a manicure. And he's also, he said, okay, you guys.
Once home to America's most violent and incorrigible offenders, The Rock was shuttered in 1963, left to crumble in the San Francisco Bay. But President Trump is looking to rebuild and reopen the prison.
It represents something very strong, very powerful in terms of law and order. Our country needs law and order. Alcatraz is, I would say, the ultimate.
It's a bold new move to restore law and order. But how might it be executed, and what does it mean for America's justice system? Let's ask the man in charge, Federal Bureau of Prisons Director William Marshall. Director Marshall, thanks for joining us. Okay, everyone wants to know about Alcatraz. President Trump wants it reopened. You have the last living former inmate of Alcatraz saying he's not so sure that that's possible. So the question is this possible, and how do you do it?
Well, thanks, Laura. I really appreciate you having me on. And, I'll just start off by saying I love the way the president thinks. To have the opportunity to be the director of the Bureau of Prisons that has the opportunity.
Quando quero logo vou atrás, vocês são crianças, dependem dos pais. Corretivo de recado, mano, eu sou bem caro, não ando no mercado. Eu não vivo rap da net, prefiro perder meu tempo a fazer moleques. Esses manos dizem que são Drake, mas na vez do lote todos que são controletes. Diga não vou. Desejo saber. Diga não vou. Mas eu tô bem flash. Desejo saber. Deixa eu parar. Doutorado banco, botou nessa cabeça do meu pai. Doutorado banco, botou nessa merda do meu pai. Como desço no play, Muitos caíram, dizem-me bem. Não fazer dinheiro com confiança. Só tem bom manager, vem pagar fiança. Nosso mundo não é, mas esse mambo tá me deixa bem fly. Eu não tenho dreadlocks, mas quem me olha pensa que eu sou paraíra. My money just beat, my nome é dead, vivo com meu pai. My name just beat, my nome é dead, vivo com meu pai. Diga no fogo, mas eu tô bem fly. Esse aí do sabor, deixa eu parar. Doutora do banco, botou mensagem, essa aí é do compadre. Doutora do banco, botou mensagem, essa merda é do compadre. Minha banda sabem que a dor é pra não vocês. Todos estão parados com conversa, what's the beat? What's the beat? Oh yeah, what's the beat? What's the beat? Oh yeah, what's the beat? Minha banda sabem que a dor é pra não vocês. Todos estão parados com conversa, what's the beat? What's the beat? Oh yeah, what's the beat? What's the beat? Oh yeah, what's the beat? Trabalhando das ninguém, tipo a ficava do livro. Quando eu me despertei, eu quero que estava a subir. Isto fácil, não me liguei, mas não passou por cima aqui. Eu acho que não está tudo bem, ready para distinguir. Quando está me confundir, essa vai dar uma saudade do dia. Porque da pausa mudando nos bons do sangue, ontem que me deu a rir. Minha banda sabem que a dor é pra não vocês. Todos estão parados com conversa, what's the beat? What's the beat? What's the beat?
Email me for personal video.
Minha banda sabem que a dor é pra não vocês. Todos estão parados com conversa, what's the beat? What's the beat? Oh yeah, what's the beat? What's the beat? Oh yeah, what's the beat? Ninguém gata seca subir, não vejo ninguém que me deixa cair. O cara na cada mas ninguém tá vindo. Porque o rap dos paquetes do rio. Da Monica canta mais, e nem Monica escreve mais. O rap você nem tá paz, da Monica cresce mais. Como boba não dá conta, né? Você não ouve isso, sai daqui da frente. Vamos o rap amolhando com sangue, não me dá boca preta. Dá uma frente desse escudo, se você seguir, vai ser imitação. Eu já disse do cristal, minha cara na cada estraga coração. Dá cuidado do meu irmão, rap não sou ilusão. Quando eu lançar todos meus projetos, o rap estarão no caixão. Minha banda sabem que a dor é pra não vocês. Todos estão parados com conversa, what's the beat? What's the beat? Oh yeah, what's the beat? What's the beat? Oh yeah, what's the beat? Minha banda sabem que a dor é pra não vocês. Todos estão parados com conversa, what's the beat? What's the beat? Oh yeah, what's the beat? What's the beat? Oh yeah, what's the beat?
Auto insurance all seems the same until it's time to use it. With USAA, it's easy to file claims, schedule repairs, and access roadside assistance right through your app. Or you could take your chances somewhere else. Get a quote today.
Table of French fries.
Need it quick? Get it now. Shop thousands of items in stock and ready for delivery in 3 days or less at Raymore and Flanagan. With white glove delivery 7 days a week, enjoy comfort delivered in just days at Raymore and Flanagan.
As a small business owner,